Can you tell I'm buzzing, Callum? Are you?
That, that was absolutely beautiful. I'll tell you that much. I didn't expect you to start off that way. Um, yeah, I'm buzzing as well. I wonder why, Glenn.
I know. Welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses in what was a brilliant Sunday, a beautiful Sunday, as the Dons further strengthened their grip on third place with a fantastic 2-0 win in our cup final, Champions League final,
Mm.
World Cup final, whatever Rangers Nation want to call it. We will revel in it because what a second half performance that was from the Dons. Less said about the first half, the better, but hey, look, the 3 points are staying in the Northeast. That's the main thing.
Exactly. And even the resident Rangers fan in my work today was saying, "Oh, well done, you enjoyed your cup final. First time you've been here for 7 years. Nah, 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 nah." I'll take it. I don't care. So I left him a little note on his desk as he went for lunch to return to. I'm delighted, as you say. First half was not fantastic, but we made up for it in the second half. And I'm a little bit hoarse still. I don't know if you can maybe tell listening in. Um, I couldn't believe my eyes in that second half, if I'm honest.
No, I still can't believe it. It's just great. And as you said there, yeah, 7 years without a win at home against Rangers, a long time coming, and long may we revel in it. That was yesterday was our 5,000th competitive game for the football club, and what an end to 7 years of waiting by going 7 wins out of seven in the league, and also becoming the first team this season in the Scottish Premiership to get five consecutive clean sheets in a row as well, because we seem to ride our luck at times as well defensively a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, at times Kelly Roos bailing us out, and at times Leighton Clarkson bailing us out. After I highlighted how good he'd been in our own box as well previously after the game against Ross County, so I'm glad he stuck to that and didn't make me look stupid. But no, yeah, Rangers definitely had a lot of chances, but not good enough to take them. So I'm not bothered, to be honest. You can have the chances if you want.
No, exactly. But I suppose let's get down to business, because we did beat the Rangers, and we've got a lot to talk about because it was an action-packed game. Team news, as expected, Yilba Ramadani fit enough to
Mhm.
replace Graham Shinney in midfield. The pre-match rumours of Keller Rose not being fit enough for the game not coming true, although maybe did have a little bit of fitness concerns, as once again, as always seems to be when we play Rangers, he suffers from cramp in the
Mhm.
second half. But I guess no real surprises to that starting 11. We had maybe doubts or suspicions on whether Ryan Duncan would retain his starting place, but he did, and had a decent enough game throughout. Maybe I had some question marks, but for his performance towards Alan McGregor at the second goal alone, I think he deserves a lot of praise.
I absolutely agree, and obviously he'd have a chance, which he maybe could have done better with. But he didn't look particularly out of place in that team. Again, it was quite scrappy at times, ball up in the air in the wind, so maybe not ideal for him. But I thought he looked okay, and he did some of the dirty work pretty well as well. I thought, and at 19, he's only going to get better. I'm sure he would have absolutely loved to stick his chance past McGregor. And I think it was my brother at full time at the end saying he saw Ryan Duncan giving it biggins to the away end as well, which is also
Yeah.
fantastic. The local lads paying dividends, Glenn.
Yeah, as we said, the local lads, they get it. They know what it means, this fixture, and he was certainly reveling in it as well. We'll come more on the goals a little bit later, but I suppose we should really talk about Graham Shinney as well before we get into the crux of the game from yesterday. Of course, Graham Shinney unsuccessful in his appeal from his red card against Rangers, which means the captain is now suspended for 4 games, serving the first of that yesterday against Rangers. The SFA throwing out the appeal, calling it frivolous. There's been a lot of reaction, it's safe to say, on the back of the decision to add an additional game for the appeal. A lot of people have voiced their opinions, some stronger than others, evening Graham Hunter, if you're tuning in. What was your reaction to the 4 game ban, Callum?
I was live on Twitch at Calum Right 2. If you fancy heading over there, I might even go live after this to play for
Good
some
pod.
Football Manager. So, as that news came in, and I was shocked at the addition of an extra game, which I know they do quite a lot when appeals aren't successful, but to call our one in particular frivolous seems ridiculous, considering a lot of ex-pros, a lot of pundits, most people, other than people trying to annoy Aberdeen fans and the officials on the day at second viewing, thought it was a fine tackle. Absolutely ridiculous. The fact that another game was added on, thankfully, didn't matter. A lot of people probably questioned whether we'd collapse without him. Not the case, thankfully. But ridiculous, and just it was probably made even worse by the red card that Jego got, which is even less of a red card, and they clearly didn't learn from their mistakes. So I can't say I'm surprised, but ridiculous. And I think this whole adding extra games just for appealing when it's done before the next game seems ridiculous and needs thrown out, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and as Ralph Owen says in the comments, and good to have so many of you tuning in and leaving your thoughts as well. We'll try to get through as much of the comments as we can, when they relate to what we're speaking about. It says it'll be interesting to see what the Jego appeal result is, and one thing we spoke about on the last episode around the Shinnie red card was the consistency, and obviously the club referring to, I believe they'll have been referencing Nicky Clark's rescinded red card at Ibrox for his tackle on Ryan Jack as one of the examples that they used. And the precedent's now been set after this weekend, with seeing Graham Shinnie given a 4-game ban. Hibs, of course, appealing that will also result in a 4-game ban. I suppose it depends who Hibs get first in the post-split fixtures. Of course, we were hoping to maybe be discussing them on this episode, but due to Sky Sports and Police Scotland talks, the decision to announce the post-split fixtures has been delayed until Tuesday, when maybe most of you on audio are listening into this episode. So we'll be discussing that next week. So we actually know who we will be doing a preview on. So don't worry, we'll be with you with more content on that next week. But yeah, on you go.
Sorry, who do you want first fixture whilst we're on it?
St Mirren away. Who I would want.
Right.
But I think it will be Hearts away just to keep that top 3 race interesting.
I wouldn't mind Hearts away whilst we're on good form. Potentially get out of the way, and if we avoid defeat, we're happy. I'd be happy with Hearts away or St Mirren away, one of those two. I'd like to face the teams that are below us in the league now whilst we're on good form, even though we're without Shinnie, which seems odd, but hopefully Celtic and Rangers towards the back end of the season would then mean they've got nothing to play for. That would be great. But anyway, moving on.
I also, just one final point then, I also think we'll be away from home, because if we were to be at home, it would mean that we end the season with 3 away games. Although going by Barry Robsons' post-match comments, wouldn't put it past the SFA and SPFL to organise that and make it work against us. So interesting to see how that plays out. Anyway, back to the all-important matters from yesterday. The first half, as we mentioned briefly, didn't maybe go to plan from an Aberdeen point of view, but we stuck in it and we remained in the game at half-time. But how did you feel we started the game, Calum? Because I feel we really struggled to get going. We never really managed to keep possession or string a few passes together in that opening 10 minutes. There was maybe a lack of composure. Maybe that's slightly harsh.
Oh, it wasn't great, was it? It was pretty grim viewing. I thought we did get better as the sort of second half went on. So the last 10, 15 minutes looked like we were in the game more and sort of competing more. But we didn't start fantastically at all. And obviously they were afforded a few decent chances, which we probably think they would have done better with. But it looked a bit nervy, cagey. I'm not sure if that's maybe correct, but whether the sort of occasion was maybe getting to some of the players, I don't know, or they knew sort of the weight of pressure coming from the fans in the game, but it wasn't. It was a very poor start. And I say until about half an hour, I was looking at the clock every 2 minutes, thinking about if we could just get to half time. In fact, even in that half an hour, if we just get to half time 0-0 and get Barry with a boot up the arse, then it might be okay.
Yeah, well, I remember Brune turning to me and being like, how's it only been 11 minutes? And I genuinely felt like it'd been 20, 25 minutes. It felt that opening 10 minutes felt like it took forever. But, the atmosphere was electric. The game felt like it was being played at a high tempo as well. Unfortunately, I felt it was being played towards our goal more than the other way around. But once again, we're sitting here praising a clean sheet, and Matty Pollock and Angus MacDonald did terrifically in dealing with the threat, as did the fullbacks. I thought Ross McCrory was superb again yesterday. Johnny Hayes is, again, obviously signing a 1-year deal as well, backing up the decision to sign him on a 1-year deal and put in another good performance as well. I think that's the most encouraging thing, because if we go back to that game post World Cup, our defence was not as reliable as it now is.
No, absolutely not. But I thought they were absolutely superb throughout. You didn't even mention Liam Scales there, really, who, for me, even despite the goal, I thought he was absolutely excellent, which maybe surprised me a little bit. I don't know. I thought he was great to start with, then I thought he was terrible, and I think he's brilliant again. But that shows that's the difference when he's playing with the likes of McDonald and Pollock. Pollock, once again, an absolute colossus. McDonald probably going more under the radar. But I thought he was absolutely excellent as well. Pollock perhaps maybe struggled at times, certainly with the pace of Sakala, I think, at times, and obviously we nearly went punished for that. But for the most part, and certainly when it came to defending our lead as well, they were just absolutely brilliant once again. And yeah, it's the difference it makes. But from where we were before a few months ago, maybe even probably still in the weeks, you would think, to now, it's brilliant, and largely down to them, and obviously the man behind them between the sticks too.
Yeah, and as Minisav16 says, is that Liam Scales' best performance in an Aberdeen shirt. I think it's,
For me, yeah.
it's definitely got to be up there. And as Chris says, it's Scales and Clarkson have been new players under Robson. I think you could probably count a few more outside of just Scales and Clarkson. But as I mentioned, Callum, Johnny Hayes through the week signed a 1-year contract to see him play football again next season for the club. What was your thoughts on that decision? Happy?
I am happy, given the form he's had under Robson. Prior, I probably wouldn't have been delighted, I'll admit. Whereas next season, if we're going into Europe, or well, to be honest, regardless, next season there's going to be a load of new players in, and I think someone like Hayes, who's been around the block and particularly played a lot of games for Aberdeen, played a lot of games in Europe as well, whether it's here or unfortunately at Parkhead as well. His experience is absolutely vital in helping to sort of bed them in. A guy like him around the dressing room, and also with a view to him developing his future as a coach as well, probably for personally for him. I think it's a fantastic move. Just another year, and he can still be relied upon, as we saw as well. So it's a bonus. I can't imagine the wages are huge, so it wouldn't really detract from taking from signing other players. So personally, I'm happy. Are you? I mean, I know a few weeks ago I certainly wouldn't have been, probably.
Yeah, well, I think, the wages point you make is a good one, considering when he first rejoined the club, what he did with his wages, deferring them for a year. So I would like to think he's not taking up a huge chunk of the wage bill. He's an experienced pro that, to use a good footballing cliche, is probably good to have in the dressing room. It'll help young guys coming through, but, is that experienced head as well, to not be afraid to tell a few people that they need to maybe pull their socks up and work that little bit harder. And, obviously him now coaching in our youth academy is also a huge benefit as well for the future generations coming through. And whether or not he is going to be a first team player or not next season, because once again, I thought he was going to go off with his customary concussion knock in the second half. But even if he is a squad player, an impact sub next season, I just think having him in the squad, whilst we're, as you said, maybe going through that transition from the summer with the rebuild and new players coming in, I think it's vital to have someone of Johnny's knowledge of the club, but experience of the club as well. And as you say, European football as well. I think that's going to be vital to us next season.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And as I said, can still put in a very good shift. And I just think good business, smart business, sort of all round, and it's good to see that from the club.
Yeah.
Um, maybe could have done with another bit of experienced heads coming into this season that we let go. But I'll I'll be quiet on that one.
Yeah. But maybe first of many deals being signed, looking at Duke, Angus MacDonald as well, of course. I'm sure his performances, I saw Can't Be Bothered in the comments mention Plymouth Argyle are rumoured to be sniffing around him as well. And I'm sure, you know, potentially English clubs will be looking to bring him back down south. And I'm sure Matty Pollock's performance as well won't have gone unnoticed as well. So certainly, hopefully, there's going to be more news between now and the end of the season on deals for next season. But back to the football. First half, you mentioned Matty Pollock and maybe struggling to deal with some of the pace that Fashion Sakala showed. Had a little slip. Thankfully, probably didn't bring Sakala down at the same time, because we could have been talking about a red card in a game against Rangers had he done so. But weirdly, probably the one Rangers striker you want running through one-on-one, because I don't rate Sakala in those situations.
Mm.
And as good a save it is for Kelleros, I think it's a pretty poor finish because it's right at Kel. And I think he would be disappointed if he didn't make the save. But spread himself well, made himself big, and prevented us going 1-0 behind.
Absolutely. I mean, had that been Morelos, probably would have fancied him to finish it, even though the performance he put in yesterday was absolutely awful. It would have just been very typical, but at the same time, he would not have got himself into that situation. You wouldn't have thought. Just the way Sakala took it, the pace he showed, and also the fact he set himself really well, and then when it really mattered, he almost had too much time to think and just put it straight at Kelleros. But still, credit to Keller, absolutely. Sort of came out, rushed him a little bit as well, which maybe applied the pressure to Sakala. But yeah, I was convinced that was going to be 1-0. So thankfully it was Sakala.
Yeah, and I was also convinced it was going to be 1-0 when the other useless blob up front for Rangers had a chance to hook it goalwards, but excellent defensive awareness from Leighton Clarkson to get back on the line and head it clear. And a real piece of defensive work that, for me, seems to have gone very much under the radar, given what happened in the second half. But a player that's really been reborn under Barry Robson, and a player whose defensive duty and really doing that dirty work in midfield has come to the fore in recent weeks. But a vital clearance, what proved to be.
Absolutely. I mean, he found himself sort of with nobody in the box and had that awareness to drop off, knowing that they could get an attempt on goal. And to be fair, Kelleros probably had it covered. You would have thought, but at the same time, taking no chances. Leighton Clarkson, superb, and that's the other side of the game that we probably didn't see under Jim Goodwin, but now with Barry Robson, he seems to be really thriving. I highlighted it after the game against Ross County a couple of times, coming up with big clearances in our own box. And once again, it's brilliant. And obviously, as we saw, he's still got that technical quality as well. But it's just good to see he's got the balance in his game to be able to do both, which if you're looking at him physically, you probably wouldn't expect.
No, and even height-wise as well, you probably think, oh, this will be an easy player to brush aside. But no, he's really, I wouldn't say he's bulked up, but he's definitely working, I think, on his physicality to make him more of an imposing midfielder. But for Matty Pollock's struggles as well against Sakala, he did make a good block later on in that first half. I can't remember who it was from, but I just remember him flinging himself at the ball and then getting up and celebrating. I remember Willie Miller praising him on Sports Scene on the way home, just how he's a defender that loves defending and celebrates a block like he scored at the other end of the pitch.
Absolutely. I think it was that Raskin boy that shot. It was definitely going wide, but obviously Pollock was not to know that. And at the same time, there could have been someone coming in at the back post to put it away. So he took no chances. And I absolutely love the reaction. It gets the crowd going as well, which in a game like that is absolutely brilliant. But Matty Pollock, just as I've said previously, just seems like a real leader, a leader of men, despite his sort of young age and inexperience, you probably could say.
Yeah, and that chance you speak about Raskin. That reminds me because that was a chance where Michael Beale said they could have probably done better, and he could have squared it, as you alluded to there. But obviously, Matty Pollock had no idea and just made sure that he got the block on. But amongst other pish that Michael Beale was spouting at full time yesterday was the fact that he felt Rangers were the better footballing side and showed that in the first half with the amount of chances they created. But Calum, as we all well know from certainly Jim Goodwin's time at the club, it doesn't matter how good a football you play, how many chances you create. And I suppose you could also look back to the data under Stephen Glass as well. It's what matters what you do with the football, because create all the chances, but if you don't score, it means fuck all at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, probably thankfully they were pretty woeful in front of goal, but at the same time they still had a lot of like passes of play that went astray just by slack passes, sort of players being able to nick in or just passing it straight off the park. And yeah, sure, they kept the ball 75% of the game. But at the same time, I felt we were we absolutely were more clinical with it. And I think it was on Sports Scene as well, actually. They were highlighting that although, we weren't in possession, we were still in control of the game. We were pressing them very aggressively, forcing those, to use a basketball term, turnovers as well, and playing in transition, as Barry says. I thought, for large parts of the game, we were actually quite comfortable, despite them having the ball a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that was something that I liked as well in the analysis, that it was almost there was 3 or 4 players always chasing down that one Rangers player, hurrying them, making them play the pass, and it was maybe a slack pass or a poor pass, not the pass they wanted. We were forcing Rangers into situations that they didn't like. They were playing in a game they didn't want to play in almost. Again, something that Kenny Miller and Beale himself alluded to, that certain players didn't cope with the atmosphere, or the pressures that come with a fixture. And you mentioned it at the start when we were speaking about how we started the game. Maybe we didn't start the game as we would have expected, but we rose to the occasion, whereas Rangers got absolutely rattled by everything, including the ball boys, which we'll come on to a bit later.
Absolutely. They seem to shrink. And as you say, I think even the manager sort of alluded to that. And that's exactly what can happen at Pittodrie when there is a crowd, not only like that in numbers, but in terms of the atmosphere generated. And it sort of plays into, Barry Ferguson's comments that we're doing the rounds. That's exactly how we want it, really.
Yeah, and we want teams to hate coming here. Every team, not just Rangers and Celtic, every team should fear coming to Pittodrie. It's that old Fortress Pittodrie. Jim Goodwin spoke about turning it back in. Didn't really work for him, but Barry Robsons certainly got that factor back. We spoke obviously about the chances and the good defending from Aberdeen. The first half wasn't really littered with chances from an Aberdeen point of view. Duke obviously going down under pressure from John Souttar. I think I did claim for a penalty, but I don't think it was ever a penalty in a million years.
It was a pass back, though. I don't know how that went missed. It was Souttar playing the ball back to McGregor.
Oh, I never even noticed that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I was too busy
Ridiculous.
just claiming for a penalty. But then the only other real chance, certainly that I remember, I don't know if there's anything that you remember, was, as we've already discussed, Ryan Duncan's chance, which seemed to come just minutes before the end of the first half, which you say probably will want to have done better with. I think it's probably on his weaker foot. But yeah, just curls it past the post.
Yeah, I mean, saw probably a half chance, but at the same time, that was, it was encouraging given how badly we'd sort of started, and signs that we were growing into it. It wasn't fantastic viewing, and I was glad for halftime, if I'm honest, but mainly because I had faith that Barry would sort them out.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we've spoken about the tactics a little bit, in the first half, the pressure, and that came, and how we maybe changed it at halftime. Certainly something we've spoken about a lot of Barry Robson's game management and tactical awareness. There's a comment from Mark Munn that came in here, and it goes back to a comment that Fraser Wallace mentioned in a group chat that I'm in with him. saying Mark's comment here is that we were never going to dominate the Rangers, but look what Clark did at Killie against the Filthy Sisters. Good coaching and tactics. And to be honest, you could almost draw a lot of comparisons from what Robson's doing to what Steve Clark certainly did at Killie and is almost doing at Scotland as well. The football might not necessarily be pretty at times, but we're getting results, and we're learning to win ugly, but we're also showing that little bit of grit, because yesterday was plagued with lots of needly and niggly fouls. Not often something we see from an Aberdeen side, building up fouls. I don't think we actually took much bookings yesterday, but we broke up the game really well. We stopped the flow of the game. Again, Beale's comments about it was a difficult game to referee. I don't know how he came to that conclusion, because every fucking 50-50 was in their favour. Every time Duke hit the floor, it was play on.
Yeah, very true. But I absolutely agree with Mark there. It wasn't, that's what we need to do to win these games. And Beale sort of emulating Rodri, perhaps, after the game, in saying, essentially that, they played the football, whereas we didn't, and we made it difficult for them. Well, boo-hoo. Look at their finances compared to ours. That's what we've got to do to make it a level playing field. And when it came to scoring goals, which matters, obviously, they created so many chances, weren't able to take any of them. And if that's what we've got to do, become horrible bastards, then I'm absolutely okay with it. And I think actually everyone played a part in that. You sort of alluded to the ball boys earlier, that the fans, fine by me. I loved it.
Yeah, and if we're going to rattle the rest of Scottish football in the process, I'm all here for it as well, because the fact that we got into a lot of those players' heads so quickly, and I allude the ball boys in that as well, because there was one point in the second half where Rabi Matondo was looking to get the ball off the ball boy for a quick throw, and the ball boy just pointed at the ball that was just about 5 meters from him and said, just get that one. And Matondo just turned around with his hands in there like, is that what I'm supposed to do? Like, they were totally rattled, and Keller Roast was his usual time wasting self as well in the second half, and yeah, there was just we were looking to almost rugby tackle players at times as well. There was I think Ramadani it was was Bojan, I think, took a really good tactical foul in the first half, I want to say, where he just completely pulled somebody back, and it was very much taking one for the team. But yeah, it's good to see the players starting to do that, whereas I think before we would have maybe shite bagged out of some of those little niggly challenges.
I agree. I thought we actually did very well in terms of the fouling game. It seemed to, sorry to mention it, but it seemed to be the ones that Scott Brown always did in big games. It was ones which were soft, not enough for a yellow card, but you could get away with quite a few of them. And it seemed we did that very well until Duke basically climbed on one of their players and dragged him down, which then saw him hooked, which I think was fair enough. But we dealt with it very well. It was, you could tell that's come from Barry Robson, and probably something he was very experienced in as well. But that's what you see good teams do when they come up against good opposition as well. You need to break up the play when things aren't going your way, and we did it in a sensible fashion rather than sort of these clumsy challenges that were always going to end in yellow cards.
Yeah, exactly. You say it was probably something Scott Brown specialised in. I'm sure Barry Robson was just as good at it in both Dundee United and Celtic days. And it was actually, I think, our 13th foul that we made before we actually produced a yellow card, which I know a lot of Rangers fans were crying about because Cantwell got booked very early on. But I think he was lucky that the one he did get booked for wasn't actually his second yellow, because he was flying into challenges. I'm surprised he wanted to fly into challenges, because he was the only player playing in gloves and long sleeves, so didn't think he would want to get too cold by flinging himself onto the wet playing surface.
Absolutely not. And I spent most of the time shouting at him for his haircut and TikToks, to be honest.
Yeah. I know you very much enjoyed going through his TikToks to slag him off after the game, but also how underwhelming was he? Because I remember how good he was for Norwich in their Premiership season, but just looks absolutely terrible.
I know. It was bizarre, and I sort of looked at that Rangers midfield, and I think that Raskin's been actually okay since coming in. But at the same time, they didn't look like they were ever going to come out on top on in that battle at all. I know Lundstrom was meant to be sort of like the holy midfielder, that enforcer, but wasn't. And that's a midfield they were playing up against without Shinnie, and you know it had Clarkson 21 or 22, and Ryan Duncan who was 19 in it, and we still came out on top. And I suppose probably a large part of the credit's got to go down to Ramadani for probably helping them through that too.
Yeah, and well, Yilba Ramadani playing like a man possessed,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure is gonna, send the fear down most players as well. But when you're mentally not in the game as well, a player nicking at your heels, pulling your shirt, should be giving away silly fouls, but not getting booked for as well, is going to get into your head. And we speak about players coming to the club and getting it, getting what it means to play for the badge on the front of your shirt, getting what it means for us as fans supporting the team. Yilba Ramadani really files under that category. As I said on Twitter last night, Shinnie, it was because when I was walking up Merkland Road at the end of full time, I overheard two guys saying, does Shinnie even get back into the team? Because it didn't feel like we missed him yesterday, because Ramadani was just doing that job of being there, trying to break up the play. And he was pumped up to a whole new level every time. South stand, red shed, trying to get the crowd going. He was loving it yesterday.
Oh yeah, he absolutely loves it, and that's why we love him. He strikes me as a nutter, if I'm honest. He gets off on that kind of thing so much, it seems. And he loves giving it to the crowd. The crowd love giving it back, and that gives him more, it seems, as well. He was absolutely brilliant. Sometimes technically not the best, but in games like that, and in fact in this league at all, what Ramadani does is absolutely perfect. He'll work his socks off. He's not scared to go flying into tackles. He'll put pressure on your opponents, and he does the simple stuff very well, if I'm honest. I suppose I've just slagged off his technical ability, putting an excellent cross for Marley Watkins at the back post as well. Never mind what I said. What can't the man do?
Well, I did have one complaint like towards the end of the game, but that's probably just down to my own PTSD on throwing away leads against Rangers. Was I felt he was sometimes a bit slack in possession, and didn't maybe get rid of the ball as quickly as he could have. And that led to us getting caught in midfield and Rangers almost having the opportunity to start an attack, but we could still be playing the game just now and they still probably wouldn't have scored. That's how wasteful they were yesterday. But it went unpunished yesterday. But yeah, as I said, it's probably down to my own PTSD from games against that lot that I was panicking every time we gave the ball away.
Oh no, and the PTSD was not helped when Scott Arfield came on either.
No, absolutely not. Definitely wasn't. But second half, when we came out in the second half against Ross County last time out, there was an intensity to the play in that opening 10-15 minutes of the second half. Unfortunately, VAR had its intervention, which denied us going 2-0 up. But we seem to have that similar sort of intensity at the start of the half this time around on Sunday. And similar to the game against Ross County when Leighton Clarkson pounced on a poor pass, Liam Scales did the exact same, pouncing on James Tavernier, who I'm going to credit with a brilliant assist for a 60-yard ping. I'm going to add 10 yards on every time I describe the goal, I feel. But did Liam Scales mean that? Was it a cross? Was it a shot? Was it meant? Who cares?
Who cares? At the time, I was like, he absolutely meant that, because I thought there's no one even close to being in the box at that point. I thought, having seen it back, he does look across before playing it, and he didn't look at the goal. But look, if he says he means it, whether he's joking or not, I will agree. And you know what? He deserves it off that performance, and I am happy for him because rightfully so, came in for some criticism, but he seems a new man under Robson, and it was simply superb. I mean, if we could, let's just say he meant it. What a bloody goal! And even better that the fact it was over Alan McGregor as well. It wasn't until about until it was like going into the 6-yard box. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Holy shit! Oh my god, it's in straight to the fence, and it was superb. He deserved it. Didn't mean it probably, but I'll give him the credit.
Yeah, I know you'll have probably had a better angle of how close that was to knowing it was going in than we will have in the red shed. But it actually kind of reminds me of the Ipswich clip. Have you seen that clip from their midweek game? Where the crowd shout handball like 3 times. It's like handball,
Yes,
handball, handball. It was the same kind of feeling yesterday when Scales like crossed it and it was like, oh, like, oh my god, like that's actually happened, and then just like pure bedlam, literally.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've heard Pittodrie that loud, that raucous, and had a bounce like that. Certainly since Hearts last season under Stephen Glass, but an atmosphere and as noisy and as vicious as that in a very long time.
And also, got to give credit to Scales in the first place for nicking in and winning that ball. Morelos probably trying to hold it up, waiting for it. Scales nicks in, does the business. What a boy,
And also Morelos slipping and falling face first into the Pittodrie turf as well. Just chef's kiss, just adds icing on the cake for that. And yeah, as you said, also seeing McGregor just scrambling, flapping, replace the horror images of David Marshall flapping at Hampden in the Euros. That is my new favourite keeper flapping at ping from about 60, 70 yards.
Oh, unbelievable. I'm just glad it was him. And that, that's potentially his last visit to Pittodrie. And likewise, Morelos. It couldn't happen to 2 nicer blokes, could it?
Oh, absolutely. And I suppose a shame for Liam Scales that the goal of the season competition closed 48 hours before the game, or that would be romping home, I'm sure. But they say when you score a goal, you become most vulnerable to concede a goal. Turns out if you're Rangers, you're vulnerable to concede another goal when you concede, because we quickly made it 2-0 6 minutes later. And again, good play. I remember when the ball went back to Kelleros and he booted it left, thinking, what are you doing that way? But seeing Duke and Hayes both unmarked, where I was like, oh, we've got loads of room here to kind of get down that side and get a cross in. And I thought Johnny Hayes had fucked it a little bit when he kind of ran into trouble, but give the ball to Leighton Clarkson and he'll land it on a dime. What a ball. That was like a pitching wedge into the green, a little bit of backspin on there, and then Bojan Miovski doing the rest.
Oh, it was absolutely gorgeous, wasn't it? And by the way, we'll mention it, absolutely not a foul in the build-up. Then it was another phase of play anyway, so suck on that, Michael Beale. You can't even complain about it.
The best part about that as well, if you watch the video back as well, when Ramadani's pulling Sakala's shirt, Nick Walsh is running alongside, takes the whistle, goes to blow, and then goes, nah, like, I'll play on. I think it's probably the only time he didn't actually give the foul. And then, as you say, it's into a second phase of play, because I remember both Bruin and Ian turning to me and saying, how's that? Is that all the advantage they're getting? Anyway, let's not complain. And 30 seconds later, we're going absolutely tonto, like celebrating going 2-0 up. And I really like the analogy that Beth Wallace used. I know she won't be tuning in because she's currently doing our RAMIREZ FM show, but saying that Bojan swooped in like an Aberdeen seagull, him swooping in to head past. Once again, a stranded Alan McGregor. Not for the first time he's been absolutely stranded in dealing with a finish from Miovski this season.
Not at all, not at all. And it'll be the last in a Rangers shirt for him. Oh, what a shame. It was,
hopefully not. Hopefully he's doing it again, in a few weeks' time.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But I wouldn't be surprised if he packs it in by then, because he really should at this rate. Unbelievable. The ball from Leighton Clarkson, I mean, we were gushing over his headed clearance in our own box. And in fact, in this placed that ball into the same box. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. Couldn't have put it more on a plate for Bojan Miovski. His header is excellent. The fact it's a diving header makes it look even better. And at the time, I thought he's definitely offside. Having seen it back, I'm still not sure how they haven't given it as offside, because I would have felt like they would have given it because it was so close and giving him the benefit, giving Rangers the benefit. But I think it was actually Davies who was slightly playing him onside or making sure it was level, basically.
It's Barisic's right heel that's playing him onside.
Oh, is it? I thought it looked like Davies' shoulder to me
No,
as well.
it's like the way, because Barisic is like leaning out, but his back heel's like still planted. So it's like his heel, the way the line draws up, is played him onside, because that's why he was getting a lot of slander for kind of lazy defending as such by, well, obviously allowing Bojan goal side. But again, for how poor Rangers were defensively for that goal, again, you've got to credit Bojan, because that's him now drawn level on the same amount of goals as Duke for the season, but maybe a bit of reward, because had the one chalked off against Ross County last week as well, but his hard work off the ball pays off on this occasion. That run, making that run, obviously Leighton Clarkson having the vision as well, but you've got to be in that right area, and the age-old buy a ticket, you're going to win the lottery.
Absolutely. I mean, it highlights his quality in movement and off the ball awareness again, and it's brilliant. Having both those two right now when Duke was probably off the boil a little bit in terms of his offensive play. I still thought his defensive work was very good. If he's having an off day, you've got Bojan Miovski to rely on, and he absolutely deserved it. And perfect. I felt like we needed a second goal, because otherwise I would have been panicking massively. And he loved it, and so did Ryan Duncan.
And so did the ball boys behind the goal as well. You see that video from the club?
Oh,
that's just brilliant. I love it.
It sums it up perfectly, and it's so good to see. Just two young lads. That's what it's about, going absolutely mental, same as everyone else in the stands.
Yeah, and what a noise as well, the second goal as well. But I think, as I said, tops off Bojan's performance, because I thought in the first half, as poor as we were going forward, I thought he did a good job of holding the ball up as best he could. It was just unfortunate that maybe the pass he was trying to make thereafter wasn't maybe the right pass, or it didn't quite work, but it wasn't for I want to try and from him. But yeah, once again, obviously we've spoken about goal of the season. We'll come on to maybe who we voted for a little bit later on, but Leighton Clarkson had a lot of goal of the season contenders. He'd have his own assist of the season contenders as well.
Oh, I think that tops the lot. However, just the technique required to play that ball, and they said on Sports as well, it wasn't a cross, because it was a perfect pass for Bojan, and 100% agree. It was absolutely gorgeous, wasn't it?
Yeah. And one thing as well from the goal as well, I know you want to mention Ryan Duncan.
Oh, I mean, it didn't even look like he was going to rile up McGregor all that much. It didn't look like it, but he definitely knew what he was doing, and I love it. Meanwhile, 41-year-old Alan McGregor getting riled up by a man who's less than half his age. It's just beautiful to see. And McGregor gave him a little barge, and Duncan was up for the scrap. He went a little bit back at him. Absolutely loved it. And I think that sort of sums it all up for me. Little old Alan McGregor, not quite what he once was, getting absolutely pounded by the Reds, and picking on a kid. Sums it up, doesn't it?
I never actually. Well, I noticed obviously. Well, not at the time. Once I watched the highlights back continuously last night, that Duncan did go up to McGregor, but it wasn't until I saw on Twitter, and Phil Perry actually DM'd us on Twitter, the clip where McGregor reacts, and that was the first that I'd saw of it anyway, the reaction. But he's just such a lunatic, the biggest screw loose ever, and I didn't realise there was maybe a little bit of afters as well. I'm sure that's conveniently been forgotten about in the statement that Rangers have subsequently released on the back of yesterday's game about the environment, let's call it, that they've had to come into. But let's not forget that going down to Govan's not exactly like going to Hawaii. It's a bit of its own hellhole that we have to endure, and I'm sure on the back of what's happened in yesterday's game, I'm sure the visit to Ibrox in a few weeks' time will be rather tasty affair for certainly Glasgow's finest in terms of their police.
Oh, the Strathclyde Police Force! Don't get me started. Oh, actually, speaking about the police, sorry, I'm diverting back towards the start of the game. Going in the turnstiles at the South Stand, you've got like one block of turnstiles, two separate gates to get in.
Mhm.
One police officer individually searching every single one going in. There's a queue going back up to the back of the road, down the road, round the corner up, wherever it is, Pataudry Street or wherever it is. This is half an hour before the game. Individually searching people, checking people's hoods. Why is there one person there?
Well,
Absolute disgrace. And I think they
what
gave up on it about 10 minutes after I'd been in because it was
welcome
just
what it's
taking
like.
so long.
Welcome to what it's like entering the Red Shed every weekend, where if you're under 18 or wear a black jacket, you are thoroughly searched, probably more of a deeper search than if you're going through airport security.
Yeah.
It's an absolute disgrace, the stewarding and policing towards certainly fans in the Red Shed, but certainly overhandedness in
Yeah.
terms of that. Not necessary, but
I mean,
um,
searching my
gives them something to do, I suppose.
68-year-old dad. Goodness me. Yeah, grip. And then also, when they were coming in, my mate made it just for kickoff, and he'd tried to go down the stairs right next to the fence because our season ticket is 10 seats away from the fence, and that's the quickest route. And then they're going, no, you can't go down there. There's too many people. That's where
Mm.
the £400 season ticket is, mate. Just let him down. That's where he's paid for a seat. Fucking let him go there. And then he showed the steward. So that was the police that had said that. Showed the steward. Steward just points in the direction of the seat. Yeah, he knows. Let them down the stairs and go.
Yeah. Speaking about the Red Shed, obviously the South Stand was very noisy yesterday, I could see. And I thought the Red Shed yesterday was absolutely superb in terms of atmosphere, pyro, flags. It was very noisy. It looked very good. It's certainly in the second half when everyone was piled down the front as well. But what I really liked was how much that atmosphere in the second half spread to all four stands. I saw the main stand getting involved at points. And, Section S, Section Y had their own songs going as well. Obviously helped by the fact we're winning, helped by the fact that who we're playing, but just shows the potential of what a successful team can actually bring to Pataudry and the city as well when the fans really get behind this team.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was brilliant. It's annoying because sometimes when you're in Section S, you can't hear the Red Shed, but you can clearly see everyone's bounced about having the time of their lives. And it doesn't help when there's some dweeb in the away end with a megaphone trying to sing something about, God knows what, not relevant to football. But it was brilliant, and I loved when it got everyone going. And I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That shows what a winning team can do to get a place like that. And more of the same going into the split, please.
Yeah, the fact that even, Barry Robson was speaking about he's never heard Pataudry so loud, and the fact that the game yesterday should be about the fans and, the way we were behind the team and also about the players, not, questions about him just shows. And, I suppose we've got to thank Mikey Rennie as well because of it's his photo that we've used on the thumbnail for audio and YouTube as well. And it's just a cracking photo of the smoke coming through and the flags being waved in the Red Shed, really kind of capturing the atmosphere really well as well. And yeah, I'm just on such a high after yesterday, and really now looking forward to a week on Thursday when, of course, we've got the Player of the Year to look forward to, and thankfully we don't have a game in between to ruin our mood before that. And then week after, I've got the Gothenburg meal at the Markcliffe on a table with Neil Simpson as well. So really looking forward to that evening as well. Just so much to be positive about in the coming weeks between now and the business end of the season, I suppose.
Absolutely. And I am, as high as a kite, I suppose, right now. I feel like I'm not going to say what I was about to say because it'll just ruin everything. I'm enjoying it, Glenn, and just long may it continue. I'm feeling good as an
Yeah.
Aberdeen fan. What's going on?
Yeah, I know. Really weird feeling. A bit more on yesterday then. We spoke about the last time when Rangers came. I remember having a rant about the ball boys' performance and that they were giving the ball back too freely to Rangers. And I think that the Celtic game as well was another one that I was enraged by. I think yesterday has to be the first time that I've ever seen a referee comment on the performance of the ball
Mhm.
boys to the stadium official, whoever it was. But again, why should they be regurgitating the ball quicker to improve the opposition's play? I'd have actually had them all in back in the main stand in their dressing room or sitting them in the stands once it got to the 80th minute. Why? We're 2-0 up. Kill the game.
Jesus
Your job's
Christ.
done.
That would be new levels of shittersy. It felt like they'd all massively learned from the one that riled up Christoph Berra all
Yeah.
those years ago. It was absolutely excellent, and I thoroughly enjoyed the point where there ended up being 2 balls on the park, and we were about to take the free kick, and then we were pointing about the other ball, which had obviously been thrown on by one of the ball boys, and then I think it was Rami Matondo kicked the ball off the park, and then Langsby subsequently kicked the other ball off the park, so there was no ball on the park. Oh, it was just absolutely beautiful. And I think, when it's like that, when the players are, putting in the efforts, showing that grit and determination, the fans are feeding off that, who are obviously already up for it. Everyone's enjoying themselves. Even the ball boys are in the act. Pittodrie can be a very, very, very hard place to come.
It can be, and hopefully we're well on the way to making it that hard place to come. We did have a penalty shout in the second half where you'll have had a better view of it from your seat. Certainly from my seat, it very much looked like a stone waller. Not that you'll get that given. Having seen it back, maybe he's going down, but interesting. There didn't seem to be a long VAR review of that one.
Yeah, that was interesting. I would have thought they'd have still come to the conclusion that it wasn't a penalty. At the time, I thought if it was certainly like Hayes has helped himself down there, but if there's contact, I would have liked the penalty. I'm still not sure how much, if any at all, contact there was that wasn't certainly initiated by Hayes. Not a penalty, and it would have just made them even more upset. So give them a chance at that point, I suppose. It was not a penalty for me, and they got that one right. But I admire Johnny Hayes for trying, even in his experienced ways.
Yeah, I know. Surely, even with all that experience, knows that we're never getting a penalty against a team that's not conceded one all season. We mentioned Kelleros in the first half with a crucial stop from Fashion Sakala. Probably more crucial, more just for everybody else's nerves, was that save from James Tavernier. Point blank, it felt. And I think for me, the biggest thing is how strong a wrist he produces there to not only prevent it going into the back of net, but then to get it high and allow the defense to almost regroup slightly, but to then get it clear and deal with the follow-up that then goes wide. And I just love how casually, just we salute to the red shed, like, nothing to worry about, lads, got this covered.
What a man. I mean, he just oozes sex appeal, doesn't he? It was brilliant. Fantastic save. And I feel like previously on in the season, I was like a bit, he doesn't fill me with confidence. He looks like he's got a bit of a shaky moment in it. He just seems so much cooler now. He seems, this is my ball. I can come and fucking claim it. I'm 6'5". I'm Kelleros. And fantastic save. I'd say huge wrist behind it. And I think there was then a block from Leighton Clarkson at some point, again throwing himself in front of the ball.
Yeah.
And Duke was back in the box clearing it. Just, the weighting numbers we had in there, getting around Kelleros, supporting him, giving him the protection when it's needed. And then when he's called upon, brilliant save. And I think that was sort of the moment where I kind of thought, we could fucking do this,
Yeah, there was like, we can still do this, but there's still 15 minutes to go, and I know how quickly we can throw this away. But yeah, you mentioned Clarkson throwing his body on the line as well, not for the first time, but there's a real almost desire from the team as a whole to, get that clean sheet as well, not just the defense and keeper, but a good save as it was for Rose. He's really come up clutch in recent weeks. You look at the St Johnstone game, the start and end of that game. Kilmarnock, when we were 1-0 up, makes a good save towards the end of the first half to keep us still 1-0 up. And then twice yesterday as well. And yeah, as Ministav says, even Rose's kicking was going well. You just need to look at his kick that led in the build up to the second goal, because that's probably has been his weakest point, is his kicking or his distribution anyway. But in terms of what we expect him to do as a shot stopper, I really feel he's come up clutch in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And many staff also mentioned that the injury has made Rose twice the player somehow, and I agree. And I also think probably the addition of Horta, who we probably all expected was going to come in and be the number one, that the competition of having a quality goalkeeper there who could take his place has probably pushed him on as well and made him even better. And I think that's credit to Keller Rose, absolutely, because clearly
Yeah.
he's seen that and gone, oh shit. Brought in a the Netherlands under-21 goalkeeper, and he's rose to the challenge, and he's been absolutely brilliant back there. And
I
I'm
like that.
absolutely loving it.
He rose to the challenge. Very unintentional term.
Very good, Glenn.
Yeah. But you say he brought in we brought in the Dutch under-21 keeper as competition. Remember when Jim Goodwin tipped Kelleros for the Dutch
Oh,
national
Jesus.
team? Is he getting back to that levels, or are we getting too carried away?
I mean, you never know, do you? They've been given caps to like 38-year-old goalkeepers. Kelleros is, I think he's in his 30s, but he's not that old, so maybe there's time for him yet.
Yeah. I've got in the notes to speak about when we felt comfortable, but a few of you in the comments, Red Till Dead says we never really looked like throwing it away yesterday. I tend to agree with that, but didn't mean I was any less nervous about us doing so. And Kaiser, good to have you along, regular commenter on our YouTube channel, saying the result was never in doubt once we went 2-0 up. If anything, we should have added to it. And again, probably another thing that goes under the radar is the team that did look more likely to add to their tally was us. Marley Watkins should have probably done better with his chance towards the end of the game. I feel he could have actually, taken a touch. I don't think he had it to, rush it as much as he did. But yeah, we were the ones that looked more likely every time we came forward. But how long until you began to feel comfortable that the result was in the bag yesterday, Callum?
I sort of agree, to be honest. What was on the pitch was showing me we're comfortable and I should be fine. However, just in the back of my mind was, what had happened the last time they were at Pataudry, and just how many times we've seen it before, not even just against Rangers, just collapse, especially in recent years. I think I was relatively calm for the most part until, as David Klein says, 8 minutes of added time. That made me a little bit nervous, especially since it was 90 plus 7 when they scored or whatever last time. But no, I was weirdly confident and comfortable that we'd be able to see it through. And that was even if they had got one back, which is weird. But we are right. We should have maybe added not only Marley Watkins' chance, Duncan that he took on his right and hit it sort of off McGregor straight at him as well. If you remember,
Yeah,
you're quite good. It was weird.
Yeah, I think until the 97th minute was when I felt comfortable, purely because of what happened last time. If they scored one, I thought the place would have gone eerily quiet and there would have been a certain nervousness that would have swept around the crowd, and whether or not that would have transpired onto the pitch. But thankfully, we don't need to worry about or discuss that too much. But one thing I want to discuss before we move on is a comment that's come in from Graham Gibb. Who said, anyone else feel we don't use our bench well enough? A lot of players were dead on their feet and seems to be a reluctance to make changes. This is one that I tend to agree with. In other games, obviously, we only made the one substitution, I think, yesterday, where Marley Watkins came on for Duke. I kind of hate in games like yesterday against Rangers changing too much to kind of break that flow that we maybe have. I understand it from a time wasting point of view, but with injuries to Hayes and Rose in the second half, we already had conjured up enough injury time to give them plenty of opportunity. But certainly something we seem to be discussing regularly is that reluctance to use our bench under Barry Robson.
At the same time, maybe just not enough players that Robson trusts. In which case, I'll probably side with Robson in that case. I maybe do think that in certain times of wasting more time, a straight swap for the likes like Coulson or McKenzie for Hayes would have been absolutely fine. Or maybe Kennedy, who I don't think has even played a minute under Robson at this point, for Duncan, and maybe his experience might have helped as well. But look, if Robson doesn't, particularly trust them. Maybe the stuff we're not seeing in training, then I'm fine. I'm fine with it, especially when we've got a 2 week gap before the next game too.
Yeah, interesting to hear Barry Robson speaking about that 2 week gap now, and kind of wanting to get the right balance between training and giving the players a bit of time off, and how he manages that. But Paul Donaldson saying that he hadn't realised at the time the shot from Matondo had hit the post. It looked like it had gone very wide. Would have been nervous. He would have been nervous had he known that it hit the post. And I remember at the time just hearing almost the faintest of nicks, and I was like, I'm sure that hit the post, but wasn't like loud or clear enough to kind of know that it had hit the post. And yeah, it wasn't until watching back on the highlights that it did. I guess from your view as well, was it clear it hit the post?
I was like, oh, I think that hit the post. I think that's my exact words, actually, now that I think about it. But at the same time, it was always going wide. It was always heading that way. It wasn't coming in. It wasn't coming towards the top corner. It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's true. It was going the other way, and I think Cal had it covered regardless. A few things then to round up before we end the show. Transfer talk. We kind of inexplicably stumbled on this last week, down to mainly yourself, but Kenny McIntyre, through his tiers at full time yesterday, published a story that Bristol City are in advanced talks to sign Ross McCrory for $2 million. This sparked wild debate in the Sports Sound studio, mainly from Willie Miller, deeming that $2 million is not enough for Ross McCrory. Where do you stand on this potential deal, and if it does happen, is $2 million the right amount we should be selling Ross for?
Generally, I think in this case, I think 2 million I would probably take. I'm not sure how often I feel like that comes around for McCrory. McCrory is very, very good at what he does. However, he's not Cal Ramsey. He doesn't got that high ceiling. He's not Lewis Ferguson, who's had been playing at a very high level even when we were awful, sort of for a very long time. I think he has been somewhat inconsistent, probably down to position. To be honest, I still don't really know what his best position is, even though he's looking quite at home in that sort of right back, right wing back position. I'd take 2 million, depending on how much the sell-on clause is for Rangers, if it exists, which the media seem to think it does. And if that is then reinvested, on top of some of the money that we'll be getting if we finish third, in terms of not only keeping players around that we currently have, I'd probably like to have all of the players that started the last game still at the club next season, and that's including Scales, weirdly. And adding to that, I would absolutely be all for that. And I suppose in terms of Ross McCrory, when an opportunity like that to go down south, double, potentially triple his wages, showcase himself in the Championship where there's probably more eyes, perhaps get himself into more international recognition as well, it would be hard to sort of persuade him to stay without him kicking up a fuss, I feel like. And 2 million is decent money.
Yeah, and I suppose if rumours are true that he's already been down to Bristol to have a look around and maybe hold talks, then it could be difficult. But certainly the consensus in the comments coming through the live chat seems to be that 2 million is on the low side. Al Mitchell saying, I hope he stays. 2 million is low. And then going on that point, don't Rangers get a sell on? I think Scott Burns confirmed in his tweet that they do have a sell on. I don't remember him saying if there was a percentage to that as well. Again, Kaiser saying it's sweetie money at 2 million, and Red Till Dead saying that 2 million is cheap.
Maybe I'm in the minority, maybe.
No, and then things like Camp Fine says 2 million is poor. We could have gotten at least 3. And again, that's kind of the point that Richard Gordon was mentioning. Do we accept and deal with Bristol City now, and you bank 2 million, and you could look to use that straight up to sign up the likes of Angus MacDonald, maybe tempt a Matty Pollock or Leighton Clarkson into re-signing with that money you've got up front. Obviously, third place comes with almost a guaranteed 6 million, 6 to 8 million. We saw how much revenue Hearts generated from their 8 guaranteed games in Europe last season. Or do you hold out an extra few weeks, hope he continues churning out these performances, and you begin a bit of a bidding war with other potential suitors. It's a tough one. I do feel 2 million probably is a little bit on the low side. I do like the comment from Kaiser saying if he was playing for Yeovil, they'd be asking for 4 million. I think if we got 2 million and a sell on, you could maybe agree it was good business, but 2 million, if we're also having to give a percentage of that to Rangers, I feel we should be eking out a little bit more if possible.
That's fair, and many Savs saying got too much of a rebuild to be losing McCrory too, which I probably do agree with in fairness. But on your point about the fee, if it was 2 million, yeah, with a sell on and potentially with additional clauses. For example, I think it was 1 million we got when Nottingham Forest got promoted after we sold McKenna. And to be fair, they finished 17th the season before. The season they signed McKenna, and that still paid dividends. And stuff like that, maybe perhaps based on the amount of appearances he gets, if he makes international appearances, if there's some add-ons to that, which that can maybe take it 3 million or north, then I'd be delighted with that, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think as long as we're getting a good fee up front, if you are going to add on loads of add-ons, I think we need to see good money up front, not just pennies really. But on that point from Minisav about we've got too much of a rebuild to be losing McCrory too, it was a comment that I made at full time, and maybe the wording that I used in the tweet from my own account was a bit harsh when I said the squad, potentially faces decimation in the summer when you look at the loanees going back, obviously on the back of McCrory's transfer news. But in that point as well, I hadn't even mentioned the likes of Duke and Miovski potentially with the suitors that are going to come in for them in the summer. Obviously, this is assuming whether or not Graham Shinney resigns. It is a big job that faces the new manager in the summer, because of course we've got to remember that Barry Robson has only been given the gig until the summer. Although I did say last week that the real test or the real job interview starts now, and certainly passed that with flying colours.
Absolutely. However, sorry, you mentioned Duke Miovski there. The 2 million could be a bit of a safety net because then you might not be desperate to sell Duka Miovski at sort of the first half decent bid you get because you've already got back that 2 million. So
Yeah, that's also true, but I still also think that finishing third is going to be really interesting because the likes of potentially McCrory, Duke, Miovski, others that are on loan with an uncertain future coming up in the summer about where their future lies at their current parent club, that guaranteed European football to Christmas is a huge attraction to us. Look at what probably the difference between us and Hearts in the summer.
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Well, that's why I said potential of that. If we can obviously hold on in third place, becomes so important to signing or retaining players in the summer. So there's a lot, obviously, as you say, trying not to get too ahead of ourselves, but there's a lot to play for in the remaining 5 games. And one player that also has struggled to feature under Barry Robson is Connor Barron, coming out today, not him, obviously, in the press today, saying there was a rumour that he's attracted interest from Genk, the Belgian club leading a host of clubs looking to sign the midfielder in the summer. And I think it's kind of been written or feeling like, certainly for a long time, that Connor is set to leave the club in the summer.
Absolutely. And it is actually a shame because obviously very highly thought of once upon a time by the fans as well. And he hasn't really given us all that much before he then leaves. And his contract's up at the end of the 2023-24 season, so that'll be the end of next season. If we get a decent bid, and for example, if it's around the fee we're talking about for McCrory, 2 million, I would be happy with that. He's barely played for us this season. When he had played, wasn't fantastic, and you get a good fee there. And for a player like him with such a young age, a sell on is vital. Mind you.
Yeah, certainly a player that was highly rated when he broke through, and I think is highly rated, certainly in the international setup as well. So a sell-on fee would be crucial to that. We spoke about goal of the season. Liam Scales would have probably had that one had the goal of the season options come out this week. Unlucky for him, it didn't. Who have you gone for goal of the season and player of the season?
Duke. Which one though? I went for the Ross County overhead kick. Bicycle kick thing.
Yes.
What did you do?
So did I. I also went for the overhead kick at Ross County as well, just because I think it was a marvellous goal. I mean, take nothing away from what he did at Tannadice. I think it will be between those two
Oh yeah.
for goal of the season. And I think I'd actually totally forgot about Leighton Clarkson's back heel against Hibs.
Yeah.
And I was actually kind of a bit between that as well. Between the county goal and Leighton against Hibs. I think Leighton can feel very aggrieved not to be potentially walking away with any awards from a week on Thursday.
Absolutely. If they did do assist in the season, though, I have a feeling the one against Rangers would have got it. So if there's any consolation, Leighton. But yeah, I mean, player of the season was absolutely no doubt for me. It was just sort of what Duke goal to choose, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, we obviously did a player of the season trophy presentation last season. Might do that again this season and then chuck in an assist just so that Leighton can get something from his time at Aberdeen.
Yeah, might be.
Yeah, why not? Robson spoke about the split in his post-match comments as well, saying that we're likely to have 3 away games, including going to Tynecastle, saying that everyone is against us again. So what do we need to do? We need to fight back. Well, we've certainly seen the fighting spirit from the players in recent weeks, but Barry Robson not only is walking the walk, he is talking the talk. What is your feeling going into this post-split fixtures?
I'm looking forward to it, which I didn't think I'd probably be saying even a couple of weeks ago. I thought I'd be a bit more apprehensive, thinking, well, we might throw this away, which is obviously very much still possible. It's still in the back of my mind, but I'm looking forward to it. And I think Barry Robson's comments only helped that. I love that man now, if I didn't already before. And I am looking forward to it. It'll be interesting to see what order we get. And I think, to be honest, right now there's arguments to be made of which any sort of fit schedule we get, sort of how that benefits. Because, for example, if we did have the Ugly Sisters first, then Shinny's back for the teams that are below us in the league. Or if not, then we're on good form. Let's get the teams that are below us in the league out the way, and then maybe Celtic Rangers don't have anything to play, and then that's maybe another to play for. That's another chance for points. So I'm just excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know it's a lot to play for, and it's just going to be interesting to see how we're dealt the cards. Because obviously, we know we're going to have a home game second up, in terms of the fixtures, that Gothenburg Day celebration fixture. I really hope they don't give us Celtic for that
I think
fixture.
it'll be Hibs because good relationship and all that might play into it, even though it's randomised. I have a feeling it might be Hibs, and and we also won't be playing Celtic home last day of the season. I know that much because it'll be their title thing.
Yeah, and I just hope that they don't give us Celtic first, because obviously with them, potentially winning the league this weekend, well, 2 weekends coming, obviously, I don't want to be involved in that fixture. I just want a fixture that we can hopefully extend or maintain our lead in third place. That would be good. Just start ebbing away any confidence that Hearts may have got from their thumping of Ross County at the weekend. But look, we're going into the split, 5 points clear in third. Who'd have thought it? Not us, but here we are, Calum. Still buoyed, of course, by that fantastic 2-0 win over Rangers. Thank you again to everyone that has tuned in to tonight's live episode. There's been just shy of 100 of you tuning in. If you want to go and watch back any other episodes, feel free to tune into the Christian Ramirez episode, where nearly 3,000 of you have tuned in. I think nearly 8,000 people have either listened or watched that interview. I know Christian still keeps a keen eye on the Dons, obviously tweeting out that he was watching on last night. But thanks again to all of you that have tuned into this episode tonight. Remember to leave us a like on the video, leave a comment if you're catching up with your thoughts on the game at the weekend, who you'd want to see us face first after the split as well. We will be back next week previewing the first split fixture, but also looking at how the fixtures have been dealt out and how we feel that will dictate the race for the third and that all-important European spot that comes with it as well. But as we said, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, come on, you Reds! Hopefully that was good enough for you, Shelty.